to those questions.
All right. Hey, y'all. Are you ready to elect Bernie? Yeah! Okay. So how many of you know someone who supports Bernie but is not at this rally right now? Raise your hand. Okay. Keep your hands up. How many of you know 2 people? 3 people? 5 people? Okay. All of these friends can make the difference for Bernie here in Michigan on Election Day. That's why the campaign made a revolutionary app called the Burn app that allows us to text all of our friends and remind them of their polling locations, remind them to vote, and to sign up for canvassing events and phone banking events near us. Okay, so everyone take out your phone. I know you have it on you. Let me see it. Okay, now text BURN to the number 67760. That's BURN, B-E-R-N, to the number 67760. Okay, look at the person next to you. Make sure they're doing it. I see some of you not on your phones. Okay. So this app is truly a revolutionary tool, and no other campaign has anything like it. Michigan can win in a landslide. Bernie can win in a landslide. In order to do this, we have to talk to everyone we know. So, while you have your phones out, to the same number, 67760, text M-I-KNOCK. It's one word, M-I-K-N-O-C-K. Okay. So this is to sign up for canvassing events and phone banking events near you. As we know, as I can see, Michigan is here to support Bernie. Yeah? Okay, so download Burn, talk to all of your friends, and sign up for these canvassing events. And y'all, let's win.
Please welcome to the stage Labor Representative, Marine Corps veteran, and former Democratic Party officer, Brandon Gemser.
Hello, West Michigan. Are you all as excited to be here today to cheer on Bernie, to support Bernie and a win in Michigan? And what a great day for it is. I am very excited to be up here expressing my support for Senator Bernie Sanders, and it comes from a couple different places. A friend of mine tells me you always tell the story from your personal viewpoint, and my personal viewpoint is as a veteran, is as a former organizer and operative for the Democratic Party, and as a current labor relations representative in the union working with healthcare workers throughout West Michigan. Folks, when I heard in 2015 Bernie say something very sharp but succinct, I knew that was my guy. He said, "You gotta be tough, but not stupid." And for me as a veteran, as the son of a veteran, as the brother of a current serving Marine Corps Marine, I can tell you it's important to have someone who understands that if we have to make the choice to go put people in harm, that we have to calculate the cost of caring for those veterans when they return, and not just the cost of the tanks, the planes, the guns, and the bullets. I can tell you, as a person who's volunteered, been a staffer, been a campaign manager in some of the toughest races in West Michigan, we need someone who's really willing to fight and put it all on the line for the people of West Michigan. We need someone who wants to embrace the ideals, the core message, the heart of the Democratic Party, and push things forward for working families across the country. And speaking of working families, we need someone who we can trust, who isn't just started supporting working families, but has been there his entire career for those who day in and day out put in the hours to support their families, to support their communities, and that make this country the great nation that it is. As a labor relations specialist, I'm the guy who's on the ground working with nurses, PCAs, other healthcare workers, and hospital employees when they take on their employer and fight for what they need to make those ends meet. And I can tell you, it's very appropriate that we are where we are today. Behind me, we have a federal building where the National Labor Relations Board is. And we need, unions need, working people need, someone in that, ahead of that group who's going to make sure there's a level playing field when unions go in to fight for fair contracts, who are going to take care of those people who are going to take care and look out as their first priority for those people who do not yet have a union and who are going to keep it as a top priority to do the things that may be difficult, that may be hard, but are necessary for everybody to live a good life in this country. We need someone who's going to fight for Medicare for all. We need someone who's going to fight for us to have affordable college education. And we need someone who's going to fight for all of us, regardless of how much money we make, who we are, who we love, what the color of our skin is, and that person. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt in my body, no reservation in my heart, that that person is Senator Bernie Sanders. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage former United Auto Workers Union President, Bob King.
Wow, these are people ready to build a movement, right? My name is Bob King. I'm retired former president, international president of the UAW, longtime activist, and I'm now a member of the American Federation of Teachers, University of Michigan local union. There are many reasons that I'm passionate about supporting Senator Bernie Sanders for president. Education, environment, healthcare. The one that I want to focus on, though, today is one that I've personally experienced a devastation from, and that's trade and trade policy. A lot of people don't realize when these terrible trade agreements like NAFTA and China PNTR get passed, it devastates communities, it devastates workers in really three ways. Number one, obviously, the loss of jobs. And when you've been a hard-working, loyal worker and your company abandons you out of their greed, that they want to go somewhere where they can get somebody for 1/10 or less the wages you're making, that's morally wrong, isn't it? Then think of what happens in those communities. It's not just those manufacturing workers that are impacted. It's everybody in that community. Small businesses, many of them are forced out of business because when workers don't have money, they can't support restaurants or beauty shops or insurance companies or any other small businesses. And then you've got the public sector. When workers lose their jobs, what happens to the tax base? It goes down. So services to all the citizens go down. Teachers, firefighters, policemen face layoffs or face wage and benefit cuts. It's wrong. It impacts us all in such a big way. The second major devastation caused to workers and communities is a loss of worker bargaining power. I have bargained in my many, many years in the UAW leadership, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of contracts with manufacturing employers. Ever since NAFTA was passed, I have not been in a single set of negotiations where the boss didn't come to us at the table and say to the workers, if you don't agree to these wage and benefit concessions, we're moving your jobs to Mexico. It's outrageous. That's right. The third point that and again, even on the erosion of wages and benefits, that also affects the whole community. right? When manufacturing workers' wages go down, it pulls down the service sector, it pulls down the public sector, everybody. So these agreements are devastating us all. The third point that's so important for us to understand too, it's about the exploitation of Mexican workers and workers in low-wage countries. We have got to stop feeding the greed of these corporations and the wealthy few in Wall Street. That's why we need to elect the only candidate who his whole career has been fighting for working people in this country. The only candidate that not only voted against NAFTA and PNTR and the other trade agreements, he worked against them. He went to many speaking engagements. He campaigned to stop these terrible agreements because he knew their impact. What did his opposition do? His opposition not only voted for every one of these contracts, campaigned for it, spoke for it, he's part of the problem. And so we, as working people, let me say this, as working people, doesn't matter whether we're black, brown, yellow, white, all we want to do is be able to make enough money, have decent benefits to provide for our families, right? And what is so outrageous and hypocritical and wrong, these corporations that really stole our jobs, destroyed our communities, they then turn around and from this greed, they bankroll candidates. And those candidates very specifically, intentionally try to divide us by race. How outrageous is it to say to workers today that your job is in jeopardy, your pay is lower because of immigrants? Was it immigrants that moved the plants to Mexico? No, it was these greedy corporations. So when we come together, when we build a movement, when we elect Bernie Sanders as president, we're going to change to have a government that works for everyone, not for the few, and to take up where the organizer left off. Are all of you willing, are all of us willing to talk to at least 5 of our family and friends before Tuesday, making sure that they vote and making sure that they vote for Bernie? Are you willing to do that? Let's together build a movement to elect Bernie and to make the United States of America work for who? Work for us all. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Executive Director of the Water Protector Legal Collective, attorney and Tribal Supreme Court Justice, Holly Bird.
Can you hear me? I'm Pueblo, I'm kind of short, so I gotta really get up on these phones. So Ani Grand Rapids! Wow, you're a great crowd. So welcome to Anishinaabe territory. Yeah. This is the home of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, the Ojibwe, and the Potawatomi. And I also want to give a shout out to my Wyandot and Huron brothers and sisters who often don't get counted. As most of you know, there's 15 plus tribal communities here in Michigan. And the land that you're on was traded by treaty, so you could live here. Thank you so much. Chi-miigwech to our tribal communities for that. And I also want to give a shout out to my husband. This is his hometown, Percy Bird Jr., who is a tribal counselor for the Grand Traverse Band. He is a proud West Sider. So you know we're down for it. So I came here to talk about and support Bernie Sanders. But first of all, in our true native way, I'm going to do one thing, which is to thank him. I want to say a big chi-miigwech to Bernie Sanders for letting me be here, for having our Indigenous voice heard. How important is that? Because contrary to some people's popular belief, we're not gone. We're here. And we're strong. And we're looking to work together with everybody to progress for a great future. This is a beautiful future we have together. Now, a lot of people in my community, they choose not to vote. And that's a shame, because we have an important voice. We have an important voice in the future of this country, and particularly in the future of this earth. And the reason that we don't do that is the effects of genocide and oppression have left us kind of hopeless sometimes about this system and how it treats our people. And that's not untrue today even. We see what's happening at Standing Rock. We see what's happening up in Mauna Kea and in Canada with the Wet'suwet'en. They're getting pushed off their own tribal lands for a pipeline. Thank you. That's right. And so it's important for us to vote and be part of this process, because we can stop these things. It's legislation and people like Bernie Sanders that can help us do that, right? And I want to show some of the examples of the different ways that he's helped our people. And I had to write it down because there's so many of them. Number one, in 2013, Bernie co-sponsored the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act. That brought much needed funds, much needed allowances for our own tribal jurisdiction to prosecute crimes against people who are perpetrating on our women and children. Do you know that Native American women, 1 out of 3 are sexually assaulted, kidnapped, or murdered? Did you know that? How many of you know somebody that's been kidnapped or murdered? Okay. I think I know 10. That tells you something, doesn't it? Our lives are a little bit different. Bernie's helping us with that. Before, you used to be able to go onto a reservation, commit an act, and get away with it because it wouldn't get prosecuted. And tribes only could give you a year in jail for rape or murder. Can you believe that? That's right. VAWA helped us with that. He also voted in 2008 to formally apologize to Native Americans for the many instances of oppression and violence against our people. That's right. That means a lot. You can't solve a problem. You can't go forward unless you recognize a problem and you apologize for it. This is like kindergarten common sense, isn't it? And honestly, he's one of the only ones to do it. As chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, he passed the most comprehensive veterans health care legislation in modern history, which also improved care for our Native American veterans. And our people are in the armed forces at a higher rate than any other minority group in this country. We're down for protecting Turtle Island, and we do it all the time. Of course, you all know that he led the way for Medicare for All with the Affordable Health Care Act. For us, that meant doubling our Indian health care service, which is absolutely necessary. Until 1982, they were still allowed to legally, involuntarily sterilize our women in our hospitals. Right. And even now, we still struggle to get health care on our reservation areas, and even out here, even here in the city. His help with improvement and the funding has helped us greatly. More health care, happier people, healthier people. Another thing he did was he helped to make the Indian Health Care Improvement Act a permanent piece of legislation. That's a big deal for us. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, until now, we always had to rely on the health care that was given us in some place, right? Our own traditional healers, people who have been healing people here for thousands of years with the medicines here, the people who gave you aspirin, the people who gave you chaga. Let's take a new one, for example. There are so many medicines out there that you all use nowadays that came from our people, but we could not get funds to pay our own healers to heal us under our legislation, and he helped us with that. He championed the Older Americans Act, which provides funding for home-delivered and congregate meal programs, transportation, disease prevention, and caregiving services for over 250 tribal organizations. And I'm gonna cut now to one other thing though, because this is really important. One of our biggest concerns as Native Americans is the earth and taking care of the earth for our 7 generations. Bernie has the most comprehensive climate change plan there is in existence. That alone would make me vote for Bernie, but there's so many more other reasons why. Finally, he has consistently opposed pipelines going through our sacred lands. He repealed legislation to take back the Oak Flats in Arizona as our sacred lands from a foreign mining company. He opposes the KXL pipeline, he opposes the Sandpiper, he opposes the DAPL pipeline, which I was at in Standing Rock. How many of you were there? Can I get a hell yeah? And more importantly, he opposes Line 5. He wants to get that out of here. Now I hear a lot of people saying we need to let the Indigenous lead the way for a better future. Well, us Indigenous, we overwhelmingly support Bernie Sanders. Walk your talk. Vote for Bernie. Miigwech.
Please welcome to the stage elected member of the State Board of Education, Lupe Ramos Montini.
Buenas tardes. Give me a B. Give me an E. Give me an R. Give me an N. Give me an I. Give me an E. What do you spell? Yeah. Now there's a song written in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement by Sam Cooke. And the title is Change is a Coming. Change is a coming. Now, as you see, yo soy Latina, and we support Bernie Sanders. Why? Why do we support Bernie Sanders? Because in the 40 years, he has been consistent. He has been bold. He has been right there with the working men and women of the United States. And you know what? Change is a-coming. I am supporting, endorsing Bernie Sanders because of his consistency, his boldness, Medicare for all, New Green Deal, climate change, jobs, and very important, education. Esta tarde estoy muy contenta de estar aquí. Como una latina, yo endorso al senador Bernie Sanders como el presidente nuevo de los Estados Unidos. Él ha estado por 40 años trabajando por aquellas en voz en el gobierno. Nosotros somos un gigante que está dormido. Do you know that my people is a giant, a sleeping giant? Every 30 seconds, one of our young people turns 18 years old. What a voting power we're going to have. Now, Latinos in Nevada, California, Texas, Colorado endorsed and voted for Bernie Sanders for President of the United States. And we will do the same thing right here, right now, in the state of Michigan. So as our great labor leader said, Cesar Estrada Chavez, he said, it's never about the grapes, it's always about the people. And what does Bernie say? I wish you could see our button. What does he say? Not me, us. Not me, not me. Vote for Bernie Sanders for President of the United States.
Please welcome to the stage Professor, Doctor, and former gubernatorial candidate, Abdul El Sayed.
All right. Who here believes that it is time right now for Medicare for all? Let me hear you. And who here knows that we've got to fight for our Great Lakes, and that means a Green New Deal? And who here is ready to take on corporate power? Grand Rapids, you know why we're here. Because it's not about me, it's about, not about me, it's about, not about me, it's about, we've got a fight to wage. Now let me tell you, I had the privilege of traveling this incredible state. And no matter where I went, no matter who I talked to, people were asking the same basic questions. Why, in the richest, most powerful country in the world, why is it that people got to go bankrupt if they get cancer? When are we going to stand up for Medicare for all? Asking why it is that we rely on a system of energy that means pulling black stuff out of the ground to burn it into the lungs of our kids. When are we going to pull that pipeline out of the Great Lakes, Line 5? When are we going to fight for a Green New Deal? Asking why it is that our kids' schools look the same way they did 30 years ago when we went there, while Betsy DeVos is trying to privatize our public education system. When are we going to get together and de-DeVos our public schools? And today, we've got an answer for them. You know what we're going to do? We're going to vote and get Bernie Sanders elected president. Now, I want to tell you something. I had the privilege of being endorsed by Senator Sanders when I ran for governor. And he said, look, I read the memo on you. I know what you fight for. The question I have is why you fight for it. And I told him about my grandmother, my Teta Soad in Egypt. Woman never got to go to school, but she was the smartest, wisest, most powerful human being I have yet to meet in my life. And she would tell me, she would say, listen, there's nothing special about you. Don't ever think that this is about you. What you have is an opportunity. What you have is an opportunity. But here's the truth. Too many people in our country don't have that opportunity. They have to worry about whether or not they're going to be able to work a job that pays a living wage. Worry about what might happen if they get sick because we don't guarantee health care to everybody. Worried about the kinds of schools their kids will go to, and even if they graduate with great grades, that they're going to have to take out a sum total of $1.5 trillion in debt just to do the basic thing of getting an education and dignifying their brain. They're worried about whether or not our government sees them and stands for them. It is about opportunity. Bernie Sanders understands that. He realizes that the policy isn't just about Medicare for all or a Green New Deal, that underneath those policies are people who are affected by them. So when we say Medicare for all, he understands that what he's saying is mothers for all and fathers for all and sisters for all and brothers for all. He understands that when we fight for a Green New Deal, it's about guaranteeing our children and our grandchildren the right to live and breathe and drink on this earth like we have. And he understands that when we shackle our young people with trillions of dollars in debt, we cut them off right at their knees. We've got an opportunity to make sure that every person in this great country of America has the right and the access to live free, to be dignified in this country. And that is why Michigan, on Tuesday, will stand up. We will say enough of the corporate chokehold on our politics and our economics, that we believe in our dignity because it's not me, it's... And we're gonna vote for Bernie Sanders for president on March 10th. Let's see you there.
Hello, Grand Rapids. Wow, what a crowd. There are more people here than there were when Trump was inaugurated. That'll be the first and last time that happens for him. Because we got a president coming that you're going to meet today. We're going to elect in November. He's going to carry Michigan on Tuesday with your help. And his name is Bernie Sanders. I want to thank you for electing me 3 times to the United States Senate to help lead the fight for jobs and for the middle class. And it's very good to be back here. I also want to thank you for something else, and that is my wife of 42 years, Lori Hansen's a graduate of Grand Valley University. So how lucky am I? Is there anybody here from a union family, from the UAW? Let me see some hands. We lost a great champion just the last 2-3 weeks, in Owen Bieber. That name will be familiar to some of you, maybe not to all of you. He's a wonderful president of the UAW. He gave great leadership at a great time, came right from here. I'm sure he's upstairs watching this because he was a fighter for justice, and we just need to keep him in mind, keep his example in mind. Bernie Sanders has a wonderful bumper sticker that sort of says it all in 3 words. His name is on there, and it says, "Not for sale." Not for sale. Not for sale. I want to say it loud enough so the big shooters in Wall Street and other places understand our candidate's not for sale. Because he's your candidate, and you're providing the money with your own individual contributions. No PAC money go into the Sanders campaign. For many, many years, we've fought to get public financing for a presidential campaign, and they said it couldn't be done. Well, until Bernie came along, it couldn't be done. But with your help, he's gone out and raised over millions of individual contributions, averaging $18 apiece, to be a competitive presidential candidate and turn down the special interest sewer money. Coming from Flint, as I do, being born and raised there, I know something about what happens when you get poisoned water. And we didn't have to have poisoned water. But this political special interest money is like a giant pipe of sewer money going to candidates. They're not going to this candidate, not to Bernie Sanders, because his campaign is your campaign. This is your campaign. It's about you. It's about you. There are 2 or 3 issues I want to mention briefly here before he comes out and we'll have some special things to say to you. The question about who can win this race really depends on 2 things. And I'm going to start with the November election. To beat Trump and get that awful crowd out of the White House. We need a candidate that can win. We need a candidate that can win. And Bernie Sanders, I've been through a lot of elections. He is our strongest candidate in November. Make no mistake about it. And that's why a lot of people are ganging up on him right now, because he knows you're on his side and he's on your side. And if we stick together, we'll get him elected president. Tuesday is going to be like 10 minutes from now. That's election day. It's Sunday. Tuesdays, the vote happens. And we need every single vote. I can't tell you how important it is. We need every single vote. I remember 4 years ago in Flint, the last debate, and I was there with Bernie at that time, and they said he was 22 points behind. The pollsters said that. Well, you know what happened when the votes were counted? Bernie won the state. He won it with your help. We need every single vote. And so I'm going to ask you individually, each and every person that's here, you've got to make sure that not only you vote, which you will, but everybody in your family, your neighbors, your friends, we need votes on that day. That's what's going to decide this thing. So I can't stress enough how important the get out the vote effort is, the canvassing you're going to do, the phone calls you're going to make, the people you're going to drive to the polls. It all happens on Tuesday. And so I ask you, go all out. Let's get every single vote to the polls for Bernie Sanders. Now, two issues I want to mention because they're defining issues in this presidential race, in the primary season and later on down the line. The two issues are NAFTA, the Mexican-U.S. trade agreement, and I'm going to start with that one because it takes a minute to tell it, but it's important that you know it. When we went into the NAFTA agreement, there were some people that fought it tooth and nail. I was one. Carl Levin was one in the Senate. Bernie Sanders was the leader of fighting against NAFTA in the House because we knew what would happen. We knew what would happen, that if it got passed, it would come in and just rip the guts out of our industrial economy. We would have plants closing all over Michigan. We said so at the time. We fought it tooth and nail. And both Carl Levin and I, of course, voted against it for Michigan. But I have to say, our friend, and he is a friend, Joe Biden voted for NAFTA. He voted for NAFTA. And you got to make the right vote at the right time because it's a test of your judgment. And it also, in the end, judgment relates even to character because who gets hurt and who gets helped. The big players got helped with NAFTA. The workers of America got shafted with NAFTA, no more so than in Michigan. And come to my home city of Flint if you want to see how devastated it is. All the plants that are closed, all the middle-class families that have lost their standard of living as a result of NAFTA. I'm going to give you one number to remember and take away. This is our trade deficit with Mexico since NAFTA started. It's 1.2 trillion, that's with a T, dollars in their favor. That's what's been vacuumed out of Grand Rapids, out of western Michigan, eastern Michigan, northern Michigan, across the industrial base. That's why we're called the Rust Belt these days. All those jobs went down to Mexico. Now, a lot of people made money on that in the United States, but it wasn't anybody here standing here in this group. It wasn't your families. We paid the price. That was a bad vote, and that vote had real impact, and it hurt a lot of people. And Bernie voted the right way. And so did Carl Levin, and so did I. But Joe Biden, our friend, did not vote the right way when it really mattered. But think about this one. Think about the Iraq War. Some of you have been in that war. Many of you have been touched by it within your families. We've lost thousands and thousands of lives, people, our own soldiers and military people, men and women injured, many killed, and hundreds of thousands of civilians killed in a needless war, in a war that was improperly carried out and where we were misled at the very beginning. I was watching that vote very carefully in the Senate. I had left the Senate by that time. But Carl Levin, God bless him, voted against the Iraq War. Debbie Stabenow, God bless her, she voted against the Iraq War. Bernie Sanders in the House helped lead the fight against and voted against the Iraq War. Let me tell you a couple of other Democrats that voted against it. Our good friend Ted Kennedy voted against it, along with Debbie and Carl Levin. So did Robert Byrd. So did 20 other Democrats. But I'll tell you who voted for it. Joe Biden voted for it. Now, how do you explain that? You know, he's a friend, we know that. But how you vote on the life and death issues, that's the real test of how you think and how you make decisions. And that decision was a terrible decision. And in the last election, 4 years ago, we had a candidate on both those things that voted the same way, voted for NAFTA, supported NAFTA, and voted for the Iraq War. We lost that election to Donald Trump. I don't want to lose this election to Donald Trump. We've got a candidate that can beat Donald Trump, and he's coming out here in a minute. And he earns your support by where he's been standing all these years on these life and death issues. He doesn't have to come in here and explain why he cast a bad vote, because he didn't cast a bad vote. He cast the right vote. So get out the vote on Tuesday. That's the key. And now I've got something special to say to you. My notes are blowing around here. We've got something special to introduce here. And I want to welcome to the stage the person that I think is going to be the next president and deserves to be the next president, Bernie Sanders. And he's going to come up here. He's going to come up here to make a special introduction himself. Here he is to make a special introduction.
I didn't know there were this many people in Grand Rapids. What I want to do now is something different than I've done before, because today is a special day for me. I'm going to just say a few words because I want to introduce somebody who is a hero for me. He is one of the transformative figures in modern American history. Jesse Jackson, Jr., Reverend Jackson worked with Martin Luther King. Jesse Jackson helped lead the fight against segregation and racism in the South. Reverend Jackson took that fight to the North. In 1984 and in 1988, Jesse Jackson put together historical campaigns. And what he created transformed politics in America. What he did as the first major African-American candidate in the history of this country was to put together a coalition which he named the Rainbow Coalition. And today we understand what that is. 30 years ago, that was a revolutionary idea. And what he said is that black and white and Latino and Native American and Asian American have to come together for justice. And in 1984, he took on the political establishment. They said, you can't win. And yet he ran a brilliant campaign. In 1988, they said, you can't win. He ran an even better campaign. He came to Vermont. I'm proud we supported him back then. He won Vermont and a number of other states, including the state of Michigan. And let me say this. The Reverend Jesse Jackson has broken down more barriers than one can even dream of. And in my view, others may disagree with me. But because of all of the racism and all of the barriers that the Reverend Jesse Jackson broke down, Barack Obama was able to become the first African-American president. If there was no Jesse Jackson, in my view, there would not have been a President Barack Obama. So I just want to thank Reverend Jackson for his support in this campaign, but mostly I want to thank him for being one of the great, important fighters for justice in the modern history of this country. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure. I'm going to come back in a minute to add a little bit more, but I wanted to just say a few words about somebody who has been a friend of mine for 30 years, who is, in fact, a great American hero. Please welcome to the stage, Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Hear it one more time for Bernie. Let's hear it for Bernie one more time. This is an historic season in which we live in today. Yesterday, March 7, 1965, was Bloody Sunday. For the right to vote, we lived and we died together. Bella Louisa, a white woman, auto worker from Michigan. In that struggle, Bella Louisa was killed. Reverend Jane Reed was killed in that struggle. And we bled. Those who fought to make it happen must not be let down today. I share this case with you today. The right to vote, August 6, 1965, began a revolution of values. It was on the most votes, not the most race, a revolution of values. Blacks had not been able to vote for 85 years. White women couldn't serve on juries. 18-year-olds couldn't vote. You couldn't vote on campus. You couldn't vote bilingually. When that becomes a new majority, Black, Latino, Native American, Asian women say, we are the people. We are the... I stand with Bernie Sanders today because he stood with me. I stand with him because he's never lost his taste for justice for the people. I stand with him because he stands with you.
Thank you, Jesse!
Well, I talked lately about the firewall. The firewall has some needs too. In this coalition, foundation of which is black slavery, we function together, we always win. We never lose when we fight together. If we have the faith, God has the power to see us through. What do we want today? We want the constitutional right to vote, not just states' right. We want to revive the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. Close the wealth tax gap. Let them pay their fair share of taxes. Because Fund HB uses $50 billion just on 2 cents on the dollar. See, this land is our land, made for you and me. We'll diversify Silicon Valley. Point is, this land, we must have a common agenda. A lot of talk these days about democratic socialism. What does all that mean? The opposite word is democracy, all for and by the people, who want a fair social spending budget. Roosevelt called it Economic Bill of Rights. Out there came Social Security. Johnson called it war on poverty. Dr. King called it a job or income for every American. Whether Johnson, Dr. King, or Roosevelt, we're on the right page. Thank God for Bernie Sanders. There's a great concern today about the impact of African American women that should be one on the Supreme Court. And for real consideration to be on the ticket of the next nominee of our party. Inclusion leads to growth. When there's growth, everybody wins. Repeat, say red, yellow, red and yellow, brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. Everybody matters. Everybody in, nobody out. Everybody in, nobody out. Everybody in health care, nobody out. Everybody in health care, nobody out. Everybody in good education, nobody out. Everybody a decent livable wage, nobody out. An environment in which we can breathe, nobody out. This land is our land. We will not let them discourage us. If you vote as you rally, we'll win. If you vote, every 18-year-old is eligible to register and vote this November and next week. Every college student can vote. See if I'm a college student. Repeat, if I'm a college student. I can vote where I attend school. I have the right residency. So I am somebody. I am somebody. I am somebody. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. I am somebody. Red and yellow. Brown, black, and white. We're all precious in God's sight. If my mind can conceive it and my heart can believe it, I know I can achieve it. I can achieve a new world. I must dream. I must dream and dream and dream. And I must keep hope alive. 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 Never surrender. Keep hope alive. Bernie Sanders can win, will win, must win. Bernie can win, will win, must win. When Bernie wins, health care wins. Love you guys.
Let me just say to the Reverend Jackson, it is one of the honors of my life to be supported by a man who has put his life on the line for the last 50 years fighting for justice. And everything that Jesse Jackson said is what this campaign is about. We are going to do everything humanly possible to wipe out all forms of discrimination in this country. We are sick and tired of systemic racism in America. We're tired of a wealth gap where white families have 10 times more wealth than black families. We're tired of black mothers dying at 3 times the rate of white mothers. We're tired of a health care system that does not give care and justice to the African American community. So we are united, and I look forward as president to working with Jesse Jackson at my side to make sure that we bring the principles of social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and environmental justice that has marked his entire life. And today, as the Reverend Jackson has said, is an historical period in American history. Together we can, we must, and we will defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. Now, you don't have to agree with everything that Jesse Jackson said or that I say to understand that we cannot continue to have in the White House, dishonoring our country, someone who is a pathological liar. You cannot continue to have in the White House, no matter what your political view may be, somebody who is running a corrupt administration. We cannot have in the White House, no matter what your political view may be, somebody who has never apparently read the Constitution of the United States. Somebody who thinks he is above the law. Somebody who is trying to undermine American democracy. We cannot have in the White House today somebody who is a racist, who is a sexist, who is a homophobe, who is a xenophobe, who is a religious bigot. Donald Trump wants to divide us up based on the color of our skin, where we were born, our religion, our sexual orientation. Well, we've got news for Trump. We are going to beat him because we are bringing the American people together. And that is the Rainbow Coalition that Jesse Jackson talked about. Black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight. And we're going to win this election. We're going to win this election because the American people, this is something that Jesse Jackson has been fighting his whole life, are sick and tired of big money interests dominating our political process. We believe that democracy is one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And that is why we are going to support a constitutional amendment to guarantee voting rights for every American. We're through with voter suppression. We're through with excessive gerrymandering. And we're going to move this country to public funding of elections so all people can vote. And we're going to, people say, how do you unify the American people? We're divided. I will tell you how you unify the American people. You give them an agenda that all working people support. That's how you do it. And that agenda says that in the richest country in the history of the world, we're not going to continue having 3 billionaires owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. We're not going to have an economy where the rich become much, much richer when 500,000 people tonight are homeless in America. We're going to raise that federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're going to have equal pay for equal work. And because Jesse Jackson and I and you believe in the trade union movement, we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. We are going to revolutionize education in America. Universal, high-quality, affordable child care for every family. Tripling funding for low-income Title I schools. Every kid in America, regardless of the income of his or her family, deserves a quality education. And we, because we believe in education, we believe in teachers. We need more African American teachers. We need more Latino teachers. We need more special education teachers. We want the best and the brightest on college campuses all over this country to say with pride they're going to do some of the most important work, become teachers, educate our kids. And that is why I believe no teacher in America should make less than $60,000 a year. And because we believe in education, we believe that every person in this country, regardless of income, should be able to get the higher education they need. And that is why we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. You know, 12 years ago, Congress, against my vote, voted to bail out the crooks on Wall Street. 2 years ago, Trump and his friends gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations. Well, if the right wing can bail out the crooks on Wall Street, we can cancel all student debt in America. For the last 30 years, Jesse Jackson and I have believed that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And we are getting closer and closer to that goal. We will not continue to be the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. We will not continue a cruel and dysfunctional system in which we spend twice as much as the people in other countries, and yet 87 million of us are uninsured or underinsured. At least 30,000 die each year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. At least 500,000 people in America go bankrupt because they're struggling with cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's. What kind of system bankrupts people because they're fighting for their lives against a terrible disease? We're going to end that healthcare system. We're going to move to Medicare for all. We have a president who tells us that he is a great genius. He knows everything about the coronavirus, and he even knows more about climate change. This is a president who believes that climate change is a hoax. Well, we believe that Donald Trump is a hoax. You ready for a radical idea? This looks like a radical audience. You ready? All right. Hold on, I don't want anybody fainting. Our administration will believe in science. Not right-wing extremism. And what the scientists are telling us is that climate change is an existential threat. That's a big word. But what it means is, in terms of the climate, our country and the whole world are fighting for our lives. What the scientists are telling us, if we do not act boldly and aggressively, major cities in America by the end of the century will be underwater. More and more drought, so that farmers in the Midwest and elsewhere cannot grow the food we need. We're talking about more and more extreme weather disturbances, flooding. We're talking about, at the end of the century, hundreds of millions of people worldwide becoming climate refugees, not able to live in their own communities because there's no water to drink or land to grow their crops. Whether the fossil fuel industry likes it or not, we're going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy under the principles of a Green New Deal. We can create up to 20 million good-paying jobs making that transition, And that is what we have got to do. And because climate change, as all of you know, is not just an American issue, it is by definition a global issue. As president, my job will be to reach out to the people of China who are already hard hit by climate change, to reach out to the people of India, also hard hit by climate change, Pakistan, Brazil, countries all over the world, and make the case that maybe, just maybe, at this vital moment, unprecedented moment in American world history, that maybe, just maybe, instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources, fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And when we talk about the issues impacting the American people, together we will end a broken and racist criminal justice system. This is America. We should not and will not have more people in jail than any other country on earth, including China. And those people are disproportionately African American, Latino, Native American. We are going to invest in our young people in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. We are going to end cash bail in America because 400,000 people are in jail right now. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to end the destructive war on drugs. It turns out, as all of you know, there are some things the president can do by executive order, other things you need legislation. One of the things you can do by executive order, turns out, is to legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And that is what I intend to do. And the other thing we're going to do, let me ask all of you a question. How many people here know somebody arrested for possession of marijuana? We're going to move to expunge the records of those arrested. And when we talk about justice and decency in America, we're going to bring about fundamental immigration reform. On day one, we're going to restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people and their parents eligible for the DACA program. We're going to end a border policy which allows federal agents today to snatch babies away from their parents and separate families. And we will accomplish what should have been done a long time ago, and that is comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. Every American, no matter what his or her political view, is disgusted and horrified by the level of gun violence in America. My promise to you is we will pass the most sweeping, comprehensive gun safety legislation in the history of this country. Donald Trump and the Republican leadership in Congress are intimidated by the NRA. Our administration will not be intimidated by the NRA. We're going to pass universal background checks. People who have engaged in violence, including domestic violence, should not own guns. We're going to end the gun show loophole. And among many other things, we're going to do what the American people today want: end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. Now, I'm a United States Senator, and I'm on the floor of the Senate often hearing speeches from conservative Republicans. And that is a painful experience, but I'm paid to do it. I do it. But if you listen to these conservative Republicans, their mantra is that they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. We've heard that about 10 million times. Well, I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who have a right to control their own bodies, not the government. So I say, and here is my promise to you: I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. We will fight to codify Roe v. Wade, put it into law. Donald Trump and his friends want to cut funding for Planned Parenthood. Well, we got some very bad news for them, because we're going to significantly increase funding for Planned Parenthood. Now, what Reverend Jesse Jackson has spent his whole life talking about, what I believe, is that campaigns like this are not about me, it's about us. It's about understanding that we are more human, we are better human beings when we care for each other, when we don't turn our backs on human suffering, because ultimately every family in America, trust me, has its share of problems. We are in it together. My family has got to care about your family. Your family has got to care about my family. That's how we improve life for all of us. And the other point about us, not me, is this campaign is, of course, about a presidential election, but it's about more than that. It's about creating a movement. Because let me tell you what no other presidential candidate will ever tell you: that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. When you're taking on the greed of Wall Street, when we're taking on the greed of the insurance industry, when we're taking on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, when we're taking on the greed of the fossil fuel industry, when we're taking on the greed of the military-industrial complex, and the greed of the prison industrial complex, and the greed of the whole 1%. The only way we win is when millions of people together stand up and fight for justice. When they say to the corporate elites, sorry, this country belongs to all of us, not just the wealthy few. On Tuesday, there is going to be a very, very important primary here in Michigan. Back in 1988, Jesse Jackson won the state. 2016, I won the state. And on Tuesday, if we stick together, if we bring our friends out to vote, we're going to win it again. So brothers and sisters, let us go forward. Let's win on Tuesday. Let's win the Democratic nomination. Let's defeat Trump. Let's transform this country. Thank you all very much.